Hello, welcome to the ATI Paperworkshop video for evidencing participant eligibility. There are two eligibility criteria. Employment status, we must know whether the participants are unemployed or economically inactive. We report our performance for these two groups of participants, so we need to be able to differentiate them. The other eligibility criteria is the right to work in the UK. It's important to check that evidence you see isn't just that they have the right to live here. You can live in the UK without the right to work, but this is an employability programme, so we need to know that they have the right to work in the UK. Evidence of both eligibility criteria must be seen and a copy retained in the participant's file. It's worth noting that participants should also be suitable for ATI, and we have separate guidance available on the dashboard about this. The strongest evidence will always be that which is most conclusive. Evidence that states clearly the participant is unemployed or economically inactive or has the right to work in the UK. It should also be readily available, including where ATI pays for copies of things like birth certificates. It should not be onerous or distressing for the participant to obtain the evidence. The strongest preferred evidence for each eligibility criteria are listed on the Annex H. On page 3 and 4, it lists the preferred evidence of right to work with options for new statuses under the EU settlement scheme. On page 6, it lists the 3 options for preferred evidence of employment status depending on the participant's situation. The preferred evidence for being registered unemployed, preferred evidence for being unemployed and not registered, and preferred evidence for if they are economically inactive. If preferred evidence isn't available, using a third-party referral is a close second preference. If a third-party referral is from the local authority, the DWP or the Job Centre, or National Careers Service, it can be taken at face value. All other organisations' referrals should include an explanation for how they have checked this criteria themselves and how they know that the participant is, for example, economically inactive. A third-party referral must be from outside the ATI partnership. If it's internal, from your own organisation or another partner organisation, this could be classed as alternative credible evidence instead. If the strongest evidence isn't available, we can look to the riskier options. First, considering any other alternative but credible evidence, any other documents that suggest to you the participant meets the eligibility criteria. This must be accompanied by an explanation for why stronger evidence wasn't available and why this alternative evidence satisfies you of their eligibility. If no evidence exists or cannot be obtained, then a self-declaration can be used. This is known as a risk-based exception, and the explanation for using a self-declaration must be strong enough to justify the exception. This explanation must make clear why none of the stronger evidence was available and how you are satisfied of the participant's eligibility. Self-declarations can also be used to explain when you have seen evidence that the participant doesn't want included. In these cases, please tell us a little about the type of evidence that you've seen and why it couldn't be included, such as perhaps it being medical information that was too personal to include. We often see universal credit evidence provided for employment status, and it is always preferable to use the My Commitments page rather than a recent statement. Let's have a look at why. This is the statement. There's nothing on there that suggests if they are unemployed or economically inactive. On this commitments page, it clearly shows they are expected to look for work and are therefore unemployed or job seeking. This commitments page shows no work search requirements and can be used to show that they are economically inactive. So let's recap the hierarchy of evidence. We always start with preferred evidence, any document that categorically confirms the eligibility criteria, and usually as is suggested on the Annex H. If this is available, take a copy and add it to the file. If no preferred evidence is available, we can look to a third-party referral if there is another organisation who would be in a position to confirm the eligibility criteria. If a third-party referral was available, a copy must be added to the file, and if it is not from the DWP, the local authority or the careers service, we also need an explanation on the Annex H for how the referrer knows the information about the eligibility criteria. If a third-party referral isn't available either, then we can have a look at alternative credible evidence. Any other document or collection of documents that shows that the eligibility criteria are met. Any available alternative credible evidence should have a copy taken and kept in the file, and also explain on the Annex H how these documents demonstrate the eligibility criteria, also including the reasons why no preferred evidence or third-party referral was available. If there is no evidence available at all, or no copy can be kept in the file, a self-declaration should be completed. This should be a statement that explains how the eligibility criteria have been met, why no evidence is available, and most importantly, how you as the key worker are satisfied that the participant is eligible for the project. A copy of the self-declaration should be included in the file, or there is space to put it on the Annex H itself. If none of these evidence options can be met and a satisfactory self-declaration cannot be provided, then unfortunately the participant would not be considered eligible for ATI. When considering any of these evidence options, at each step check with yourself, does the evidence support the eligibility criteria? If it isn't conclusive, what is it about it that suggests to you the criteria is met? Do include this in the explanation. Do also check that it's in the participant's current name. If not, how do you know that it's them and that this current name links to the other? An audit trail should be included for any name changes. This might be marriage certificates or deed poll, for example. We've mentioned the importance of explanations frequently already. There are two parts to explanations for alternative evidence or self-declarations. Firstly, we need to know why no stronger evidence was available. These are example reasons and certainly not exhaustive, but some reasons might be that they are not receiving benefits and they're not registered with any other support, therefore there is no documentation for that. It could be that their benefits documents are not conclusive. It's possible that documents have been destroyed and there's a reason why they can't get replacements. Do be sure to tell us what that reason is. It's also possible that documents might be held by someone that the participant can't get in contact with for whatever reason. Do also explain what that reason is. It's possible that a document is in a different name for some reason and that it can't be evidenced, and we should have that explained as well. We then need to understand how you are therefore satisfied of their eligibility. Again, these examples aren't exhaustive. Some explanations could be that the information on the document shows you something, which means that they are unemployed, economically inactive, or have the right to work in the UK. It could be that the participant has been known to your organisation for a number of years and that another colleague has checked their eligibility criteria, and whilst there might be no evidence of that now, that is how you are satisfied. It could be that the type of benefit you know is only available to people who meet the specific eligibility criteria, whether that's being unemployed, being economically inactive, or having the right to work in the UK. If you can point us to where this is stated, that's worth including in your explanation. It's also possible that you might have a verbal confirmation from someone who supports the participant that they have checked the eligibility criteria. For whatever reason, you haven't been able to get that in writing as a referral, but you can explain how you are satisfied that way too. Any evidence needs to be copied, certified, and kept in the file. These 6 things should be on every certification. A statement to the effect of, "I certify this is a true copy of the original," your name, your job title, your organisation, your signature, and the date. In these COVID times, when the participant hasn't been able to physically sign the forms in person, we need to know how you saw the original document. You should adapt the certification statement to include how you saw that document. For example, it's a true copy of the original as shown to me on Zoom on a certain date, or it's a true copy of the original shown to me during a socially distanced meeting on a certain date. Please avoid emailing photos of documents unless it is securely encrypted, especially if participants are using email addresses such as Hotmail or Gmail. WhatsApp can be used because it's encrypted, but please check your organisation's data policy first and only use it if your organisation allows. We have previously issued guidance on how to apply digital certification in Adobe. This is particularly useful whilst working remotely and perhaps without access to a printer. Firstly, you should write your certification wording in a Word document and then save it as a PDF. Note that this doesn't include a signature or a date, which is fine here. In Adobe, through the comment and stamp menus, you can create a stamp using this document. You can then apply this stamp to any PDF. Clicking on the stamp once applied allows us to view the properties, which tells us it was you that applied it, essentially being your signature, and the date that it was applied. After applying a stamp, please do not edit the document in any way because we may then lose the ability to isolate the stamp's properties. If you do need to make a change, you may need to reapply the stamp. The stamp also relies on you being logged in as yourself when using Adobe. One final update on eligibility. Since we left the EU, there has been a grace period for EU nationals to apply for settled status. This grace period has now expired, and so any EU national will only have the right to continue working in the UK or to continue engaging on ATI if they have already applied for settled status. Alternatively, they can have applied through the immigration system. This applies to anyone who had previously signed up to ATI because the previous arrangement with the EU has changed. Participants can share their status with you through gov.uk. This site will give them a share code, which you can use on gov.uk to view and download a PDF of their status, whether under EUSS, the settlement scheme, or the immigration system. Please retain the PDF in the file. Participants may have received other letters, but do check these carefully. They may say that the letter cannot be used as proof of status. Thank you for watching this ATI Paperworkshop video for evidencing participant eligibility. For more information, please contact the ATI team.